Welcome in, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. We will go ahead and get started in just about 2 minutes. We're going to let everybody go ahead and trickle into the Zoom room. So thank you for being here. Okay, everyone. I see we still have some folks joining, so thank you so much for being here this evening. We're just going to go ahead and I'm going to start some introduction and welcome to the meeting, and then we'll get our panelists on to do some introductions as well. So again, thank you for being here. This is the Careers in UX and UI Alumni Panel Discussion. My name is Julie Berry, she, her, and I work for the University of Washington Alumni Association in our Alumni and Student Programs Department. And so, really working to help to bring alumni together with our students in order to really make those connections and, help to make a lasting impact across the years. Um, so we're going to go ahead and get started with some introductions. And so I'm going to have my panelists join me on screen here. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Generous in order to get us started with some intros for us this evening.
Cool. Thanks, Julie. Hey, y'all. Happy Wednesday. Generous here. Yep, just like the word. Pronouns are he, him, and I'm currently a senior experience designer at PayPal, and I graduated from the HCDE program back in 2022. Pass it over to you, Hannah.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Hannah. I graduated from HCDE in 2021, and I'm currently a UX designer at Epic Games on Fortnite Battle Royale team. And I'm also co-founder of CoCreate. Really nice to meet you, everyone.
We'll go ahead and pass it to Lynette.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lynette. I am currently a UX designer at Google, working on signing with Google account. And I graduated in 2019, and I majored in sociology and minored in informatics. So I'm excited to share you guys my journey and how I got into UX.
Moni. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Munia. I graduated in 2022 from informatics, but I came back to the UW, and now I'm pursuing a master's in information management, also under the iSchool, and my projected graduation is 2026. I currently work as a UX designer at a nonprofit startup called Enable You, and our main project is creating an AI platform that streamlines the process of homeless individuals getting resources and services.
Awesome. And I think that leaves me. Hey, y'all. My name is Ty. I'm a two-time Husky grad. I was in the Foster School of Business for my undergrad. I graduated in 2013 and then came back for a master's in the HCDE program, graduated from there in 2023. And I currently work as a senior user researcher at Reddit in the moderation and safety space. So working with our volunteer mods to help them grow their communities, and then figuring out all the ways that we can keep users safe on the platform. So excited to chat with all of you.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing all. Okay, so we're gonna just jump right in. Would love for you all to share why you chose your major, program, field of study, and then maybe how that prepared you for your career or job in the UX UI field. And I will let whomever go first for us this evening. Okay, we're gonna kick it off with Lynette since you talked about your connection with your sociology degree.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually gonna just unmute myself and start. Um,
Perfect.
yeah, so beginning in like freshman year, I was just exploring all kinds of, social science subjects, and I tried a lot of things. And I decided on sociology was because I think it would be really interesting to learn about, I guess, how the society works and how people make decisions. I'm just curious about, I guess, more like social psychology aspect of things. And then gradually, after joining some like organization clubs at UW, I realized that I always loved the design and entrepreneurship. And also with that insight, like from, I guess, human understanding human needs, I realized that's UX is like the center of all of this aspect. So I started to take few classes in informatics, like design thinking, and I realized I always also have like opinions on a mobile app or website that I use. I always think about, oh, if I'm the designer, I can make this feature more convenient for people. So I just initiated some projects or take some classes and have some projects and take it further and realize that, oh, this is what I really like, enjoy doing. So after I graduate, I just, build up my portfolio and apply jobs here and there. And then my first job was actually at TikTok. I worked there for a year when they're just kind of like a startup mode, when they just start, hiring designers, very early stage. And that was the first time I know what it's like to be a UX designer, what's our day-to-day work like. It's quite different from just, I guess, doing projects myself. And then after that, I did my master's in University of Michigan. I majored in HCI there for 2 years. That's when I interned at Google and then returned. Because at the time after I work at TikTok, I realized that I want to study more about UX research as well. I think that plays a huge role in design decision making process. Yeah, so now I work at Google for 2 years now. Okay, I think I shared too much. I'll save time for everyone else. We could share more about that later if you're interested.
We'll make sure to note that down. Thank you, Lynette. I'd love to pass it off, maybe Hannah, if you want to talk a little about your journey as well.
Yeah, of course. So for my journey, like why I chose HCDE, I would say like I basically grew up with like a more science and a math focused background, but I've always really into like how people interact and how to solve like some problems with creative ideas. So when I'm looking at what kind of a major I want to get in, I want to apply, HCDE feel like a perfect like bridge between creativity, psychology, and also technology. So I just feel like that's a perfect field for me to combine all of my abilities and my interests. That's how I chose HCDE, and I would say like through my major, it actually helped me a lot building up like some UX research abilities. So I feel like it helps me set up a strong foundation when I'm working with UXR in Fortnite. Like for example, when we are doing play tests, I have a very clear goal how to communicate and set up the usability test, how to use all these research methods to gather the valid data from players. That's kind of something that I feel like how it helped me to success in the current field.
Ty, you look ready. I'm gonna pass it to you.
Sure, happy to. Yeah, so I'm on probably my third career at this point. So if you don't know what you want to do with your life, don't worry. There's hope. It takes a little while sometimes, but so I started out in the business school at UW. When I came out, I my first career was doing finance and marketing and business operations for small businesses. Um, I then, I was living in Seattle. I wanted to get into tech. I didn't know how I fit into tech. So I ended up working as a technical recruiter for a handful of years, first at a design and UX agency and then in a startup. Eventually, I realized being an introvert and being a recruiter is like not a great combination, but I had done a lot of hiring for UX roles, research roles, strategy roles, and I knew that that was kind of a space that like, okay, I think this is where my brain kind of works. So I was really fortunate. I was able to go back to the design agency that I was working at and work there as a UX strategist while I was going through the HCD grad program. So I was getting a lot of real world application while I was learning some of the theory behind how to do UX the right way. And yeah, I was able to do both of those at the same time. And, I think as weird of a journey as it was, having kind of that interdisciplinary background and that business experience has sort of been one of the things that has made me really successful as a researcher. It's kind of what has helped me to uh, think abstractly, think about systems, to take into consideration like what are we trying to accomplish as a business? What are our team goals? Think about what is our product strategy? What is our company strategy? And to really use research to kind of thread the needle between all of that. So, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes having a random path to where you get has unintended consequences in a good way.
Thank you for that. Monia, if you don't mind to share your journey.
Yeah, so I would say my first introductory to UX and UI was actually when I was a kid. So unknowingly, I really like designing web pages using Microsoft Word, and then I self-taught myself like basic HTML to like customize my Neopets profile. And then my formal introduction to UX was through this quarterly certification program that this tech club at UW called Dubs Tech has. I don't know if they still have it, but it was like a UX certification program where you learn like the basics of Figma. And then I decided to pursue informatics for a major because I was at a point where I was still torn between doing software development, data science, or UX. And since informatics was an interdisciplinary major, I thought it would be like a good fit so I could like better figure that out. And yeah, that's why I chose informatics. I decided to go back and get a master's in information management because I graduated in my undergrad in 2022. So the job market was starting to get like really rough then, and I really understand how hard it is to like job hunt in this market. So I was hoping like a master's would just make me more overall competitive, but I was also interested in pivoting into product management. And the program's called MSIM, but what I really liked about MSIM versus like other similar programs is that it combined UX with PM work as well. So that's why I opted for that. But also like there's just some benefits with going back first to school, like more opportunities to network, another chance of internships, learning more and just staying relevant within the industry, and like potentially like getting higher pay because you have a master's now. And yeah, since I also did undergrad during COVID, I kind of missed out on that college experience a bit. So that was another reason why I decided to go back for a master's.
Thank you for sharing that. And Generous, I'll pass it to you.
Cool. Yeah, I can participate in the class activity too. I'll round us up. So yeah, I was an engineering kid, jumped around all the different fields and whatnot. Honestly, HCD, finding it was a bit of luck, I guess. Like I just found HCD. It resonated with me and my values. So like being people first, working on things for people, and then also just kind of being in that digital realm. So like growing up around computers, playing video games, whatnot. Uh, if I was to kind of think back, like the signs were all there, but it's not something I realized in the moment. So like I'm also a wrestling coach, so I've worked with like deaf and hard of hearing student athletes, and so just thinking about like opportunities to make them like have the same experience as us. Like as we like coach other student athletes who might not have those challenges. So HCD really has like that accessibility built in as well. And so if that's something you're passionate about, like designing for all types of people, regardless of their backgrounds, experiences, skill sets, and whatnot, UX UI might be a good path for you. I think just thinking about even like maybe your parents who might not be as technically savvy. Like for me, maybe like they use mobile apps and they always ask me like, how do I do XYZ? And so like that might be something you're interested in if you want to pursue UX UI to like make those experiences better for all people, regardless of age, ability, background, things like that. I'll stop there. Yeah.
No, that's great work. Thank you so much for sharing about that. So now that you all have shared about kind of your schooling background and your time at the UW and now moving into your positions, maybe it's your first or your third or your fifth, talking a little bit about like for the current position you're in, or maybe interviews in general, how did you really prepare for the interview in your current role as we're thinking about students who are joining us in this panel and they might be getting ready to take that next step?
I can start first. So something that come to my mind immediately is that I think, at least for the interview that I did, I think they really care about your design process. So I think being a UX designer, I think your reasoning or how you articulate your reasoning, your design is really important. And I think behind every decision, like really like granular things, you will need to have your reason why you want to do that. Like, why do you think this color works better than that one? Why do you think this component should be here, be like this particular section? Or to the broader concept, why do you think this is the right problem to solve? And why do you think this is so urgent right now that we need to work on this, whatever? So I think while you are building your portfolio, of course, you are going to, I think there's going to be like maybe 30-minute walkthrough of your portfolio during your interview. So for that project you are going to talk about, I think just go through that with your friends or professors or anyone, and then just see that if they can ask some questions, maybe that will question like your thought process. But that's good because you want to really think through, and you also need to be able to share that reasoning clearly so that they understand. So I would recommend that every step of the design process, you make sure you understand why you do that. It's gonna be very logical as well. And I will also recommend a website called cofolios.com. I think it has a collection of designers' website portfolios there that you can take a look at their how they are structure their design process projects. I think that would be really helpful to look through.
Yeah, I think thanks for sharing, Lynette. I can go next. I would say like for me, like how I got my job at Fortnite is like I really start my job hunting early. So before I graduated, I already start working like for 1.5 years, like as a part-time designer or like a contractor. And it just like a building up things. If you don't have your first work experience, it's really hard to get first internship for sure nowadays. So my suggestion is that's exactly how I did. When I was at UW, I participated into some design communities, some clubs like DFA, and I attended some like DRG programs that related to the field that I'm interested in, like gaming DRG. Just like a lot of research groups, a lot of student design communities gonna help you build up your first projects so you can get some like your first working experience in the real field, and then using that in field working experience you can apply for your first design internships. And ideally, if you had a chance to build up more like real projects, try to look at some like cross-functional collaboration opportunities, because nowadays we really care about like if you really know how to do design in the real world, rather than saying it is my passion projects, I just work solo. So that's something like I would suggest everyone to try.
Real quick before we move on, I have a question about what that website URL is, Hannah.
Oh, I think it was Lynette.
Oh, sorry, Lynette. Was
No,
that?
you're okay, Lynette. If you have that URL, if you could share it again.
Yeah, I'll type that in the Q&A.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks, Lindsay, for that catch. Hannah, your comment on internships really is a good segue, I think, for thinking about like how, and Hannah doesn't have to start, but you're more than welcome to. For all of you, like what kind of tips do you have for students who want to get an internship, who are maybe entering that process soon or preparing here in the next few years? And then you've also talked about portfolios as well. So thinking about like getting to that internship and what is the importance of portfolio? How are we improving that kind of along the same timeline? If you've had an internship that you enjoyed, or maybe you have a friend who had a great internship that you'd got some experience through as well. The emotional support friend, as your friend is in the internship. Go ahead, Jenner.
Yeah, sure. I think it's definitely a popular question. Internship season gets really stressful, but I think one thing to keep in mind is it really does become a numbers game, like applying to everything big or small, not necessarily being like, hey, I need to get a FANG internship in order to be successful. Like you have the rest of your life to work in FANG. So like looking beyond the big names that you're familiar with, exploring the startup world. I think startups are underrated. They're a valuable opportunity because you get to wear many hats, discover different interests or niches. And obviously internships are competitive, but then you don't have every single applicant digging deep to find those startups. And so finding those job listings is pretty much just as important as like preparing your resume, your portfolio for the big companies. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind, just like explore everything. Don't be so set on like your dream company while you're a student, like you have the rest of your career. And then kind of circling back to the previous question, like just kind of preparing for interviews. Maybe a hot take, maybe not, but I just think I personally prepare for all interviews the same. I wouldn't recommend trying too hard to tailor to any job, at least while you're trying to get an internship. But really like focus on yourself, be genuine to yourself, be true to yourself, focus on your own design thinking, build on your own skills. So like my own past experiences, thinking about those enough to give the recruiter or hiring manager a brief, then they can like ask me to dive deeper if one of those experiences is relevant or interesting to them. Similarly, with a portfolio presentation, personally, I reuse the same deck. At the end of the day, like I want to be confident in what I share about myself. And so not trying to mix up all these different stories within my head. And during my time like in undergrad, like I did land an internship at Amazon so that I can kind of give credibility to that advice.
That's awesome. So reusing, I'm hearing you talking about like reusing items you've already prepared, but making sure you're still personalizing it to who you're interviewing with as well.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else want to talk about improving your portfolio, or maybe there are folks on here who haven't even started their portfolio. How would what is your kind of tip to get that rolling, or do you use any sort of platforms that you would suggest to keep them? Um, yeah, thoughts on that?
Okay, I'll share a thought on the portfolio piece, and I'll say, do as I say, not as I do here, because my portfolio is terrible and hasn't been updated in years. But I think, as somebody who has looked at UX portfolios both from the recruiting side and being on like the hiring side as a researcher, I think one of the big things that you should do is really think through who your audience is for each version of your portfolio, and the story that you need to tell there. Like a lot of portfolios I see where they go wrong, it's kind of a grab bag of like, here's a, 10,000 word case study with all of the screenshots of things I've done. And, here's all these facts about me. And I like accessibility and I like science fiction, et cetera, et cetera. And your portfolio is really, starting with your online one, that is your 2-minute opportunity to sell companies and hiring managers on you being the right person for that role, which means that really thinking through your narrative for your portfolio and using it as an opportunity to say, like, here is what makes me the best designer or researcher to solve your problem. That is the framing that I think you should lead with. And then for your online one, your case studies, often the hiring managers, the recruiters are going to spend 30 seconds to 2 minutes reading through things. So it's like, how do you communicate the story and the impact that you had really efficiently? That's going to be different than putting together your case study, your portfolio presentation for an interview. That is going to, you're going to have a different medium there. You're probably using slide decks as opposed to a website. You're going to have more time to really expand on your thinking and everything that's happening there. So just keep some of those different audiences in mind, and kind of UX your UX portfolio as you're going through it.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Lynette.
Oh yeah, sorry. I
No, you're
I
fine.
also saw like a question in Q&A, and I just want to add on to that since it's related to this question. So I guess what I did for my resume when I apply for Google or for some other companies, what I did is I carefully read through the job description, and I was being a little bit strategic on that because I heard about from another company's HR said if your job description is kind of merged into your resume, it would likely increase the chance you're going to be selected. Since I really like Google, like their products, so I kind of improved each bullet point on my resume. I mean, still it's fact, but kind of improve it towards what a job description it's like. So I think that really helped. That I got selected for the first round.
We love a good tip and trick, so thank you. I actually, Hi, or whoever else would like to answer. We have a couple questions that I think would be good if we took now. But thinking about like how many portfolios should one have? And did you start your portfolio from scratch? Which as a non-UX UI person, I wouldn't even know that you wouldn't. So would love to talk more about that. How many do you have? Is it kind of like how Generous was talking earlier? Like maybe you preference it to where you're applying? And then did you start it from scratch as well?
On my side, I so kind of my approach is like having you'll have I think you'll have your online portfolio that's kind of like your broad strokes, like that's your marketing page, right? With some of your case studies, etc. I don't create a separate website for each job. Like um when it comes to creating the portfolio presentation, that's probably your slide deck that you're going to be, taking into the interviews to present some of your case studies. What I do is I have kind of my core deck that I work from with like a handful of my, maybe 3 or 4 of the case studies that I know off the top of my head. I can pull from those. I've got strong stories to tell around them, but I might tailor parts of that portfolio to the interview. So maybe it's in the introduction when I'm talking about myself and my background, why I'm a good fit for this job. I'm probably going to tailor that narrative to the job, to what they're looking for, to kind of shorten the distance between them understanding who I am and thinking that I'm a good fit for that job. And I'm probably going to pick out to the case studies that are showcasing skills or traits that they're looking for. And like Lynette said, you can pull some of that you'll get a hint for that from the job description. Like, what are those things they're really looking for in that role? You'll get a hint for that from some of your earlier interviews. But that's where I think a lot of the portfolio tailoring comes in, is when you're actually able to present it in that situation.
Great. Thank you so much. And yeah, keep putting your questions in the Q&A. We will save about 15 or so minutes at the end to do questions specifically, but I'll try to incorporate some as we're chatting if they feel timely. Generous, I see I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, just wanted to kind of bump on Ty.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, only like one portfolio is really needed. Like, it doesn't make sense to manage multiple portfolios with multiple case studies and whatnot. And you're probably just gonna stress yourself out like way too much. I think the most important thing is like the recruiter or hiring manager sees your work, and then that starts the discussion about where you like kind of separate or fork out to what projects you want to share. And then the question about like starting from scratch. I think a lot of people typically start from scratch, but there are obviously like templates out there, but like it's not like they're gonna really help you in the sense of like if you don't have a project. And so every project you have is gonna be based on the experience that you have, and so you're gonna have to fill in those blanks. I think popular things are Webflow and Squarespace still as paid options for builders. Coding your portfolio is always a fair option and shows like that you have some sort of like technical background or like you're able to like kind of empathize with engineers. So if there's any interest in coding, I'd recommend it. And then y'all are spoiled these days. There's Figma Make and for Figma sites or whatever. Like I think they're like working on that, and like I think there is an opportunity there to use Figma in order to like build your portfolio and have that like personalized link. So definitely explore it. Shameless plug.
I love that. Oh, Hannah, go for it.
Yeah, just want to quickly add on Ty and General's point. So my quick suggestion for someone who hasn't started building your portfolio is I would suggest you to make your slide deck first, because all the things that you made on slide deck, you can quickly reuse it and then put it into one-page version for each of your portfolio pieces. But the way how you build up the slide deck, it forces you to thinking about the storytelling. And also for some of the, lot of the cases, I would suggest to start job hunting as soon as possible. So don't hesitate if some part of your portfolio is not perfect. If you already have your slide deck, that means you are ready for an interview opportunity. So making sure you have the slide deck first, and then making all of that into your portfolio step by step. But the storytelling is the first, and always making sure that when you're making your slide deck, I would suggest just write down the script first and then translate it into each of the page.
Thank you. Okay, so before we pivot into talking more about your roles and the responsibilities and what your day-to-days look like, I think just wrapping up some of these education pieces. And so would love, we're going to start with Moniat. Would love you all to talk about each of your own individual experiences around like online certifications. Do you find that those are useful, or those that your things that you're seeing with employers that they're wanting? Things like Google Analytics or courses offered on things like Coursera. And then also, some of you have already touched on your pull to go back for your master's degree. But if you haven't yet, or if you've been thinking about it, and what those thoughts have been into that. So just kind of your current like take on continuing education and how you see that coming up in the workplace.
Yeah, thank you. Personally, I don't really think most employers care much about certifications, just because certifications are pretty common, especially amongst like new designers. And instead, I would, if I was job hunting, I would prioritize like having a solid understanding of like core UX fundamentals instead. However, getting certifications could still be beneficial from a learning perspective, because it will help you deepen that core knowledge, or you could develop skills that are also attractive for a UX person to have, like front-end development or graphic design. So, yeah.
I think I can talk a little bit about the master decision. So I know like some people asked me before, like you already got a job at TikTok, why are you still going to do masters in this? Because I think just because I worked there for a year and then I realized that, for example, UX research is something I want to learn a little bit more. Like, for example, I think companies are different. Like TikTok, very like fast paced, and a lot of decisions made there are based on data, A/B testing, less about the research side of things. But now at Google, I think since it's not that fast paced. So we do a lot of research. We work with researchers a lot to define what question we want to ask, to know, to do some assessment on user needs. Is this really a valid feature we want to do? Do people like this? So I think that's part of the reason why I decided to go for a master in this. So you got to learn about a lot of methods in research. And I think it become really helpful right now at work when I need to work with them. So we're speaking the same language. I understand what kind of methods they're using. So I think sometimes, I think when you choosing master program or certificate, you can look for the specific courses or the skills you want to develop. So then I think that will help you narrow down your choices.
That's great. Okay. So let's jump into your roles that you all currently hold. So, if you don't mind to kind of share what your day-to-day routine or tasks look like, recognizing that all of our day-to-days are different every day, but maybe some of those your ideal day, um, or some of those recurring tasks that you might be doing in your positions.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
go for it, Lynette.
you
And
can
then
go.
we'll pass to Ty after. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
I
you're
I just want to share a little bit about, I guess, my day-to-day work now at Google. Um, so usually, I think as a designer, you probably think design is 100% what we do, but it's actually not. So it's like 50% design and 50% communication. So that really, I guess, changed my, I guess, perspective in how I work every day. Because if you just work on the design, exploration and stuff, um, it's not, I guess it's not enough to push the project going. I think your weekly sync, your communication with your stakeholders, how do you balance the needs between like business goals and also what you want to advocate for the users is really crucial here. And also, like since I work on like, third party access, this kind of sensitive area, legal is also like a huge, I guess, part of this. We need to convince them what kind of like why is this good for users and how could this prevent the risks that is going to bring to the users. So I think a lot of times it's reasoning. So I think yeah, stakeholder communication is a huge part of my day-to-day work, besides my, I guess, my time with getting feedback from my design peers and stuff.
Well, I can share a little bit from the research side, because I think my day to day will probably look a little different than the designers. But I guess taking a step back, like the big reason the companies have user research is that like my job is essentially to help the product teams, the designers, the PMs de-risk their decisions, right? It's to help them uh, eliminate some of that ambiguity so that we can avoid spending millions of dollars building something that nobody wants to use. So, like echoing what Lynette said, a big part of what I do is communication. It's meeting with my product managers, meeting with the designers, meeting with our product marketers, engineering to understand, okay, what are we trying to accomplish as a team? What are we hoping to build? Why are we hoping to build it? To then inform, okay, what questions do we need answered that is going to de-risk this launch, that's going to help us build the right thing. So a big part of it is taking all of that information in and using that to figure out what is the right research approach that I should take to answer that question. Maybe it's running interviews, maybe it's running a survey, maybe it's using a bunch of different research methods to get at the answer that we need. Big part of my job from there is actually running that research, executing on the research methodology, et cetera. But then once we come out of that, it's back to communication again. It's all right, how do I package this information so that it lands, so that it helps people make the right decision. It's working with the designers and the PMs to turn that research into product specs, into design briefs, et cetera, and doing a lot of that stakeholder management to actually make sure that we're doing something with all of the research. So at a really high level, that's some of what it looks like being a user researcher.
I think I'll just jump into kind of stress communication. I think the more communication you like have to do like keeps on going as you get higher up. So like right now, every day is different. Like for me, like Mondays and Fridays are a little more quiet. I get to kind of focus, deep dive on my projects, explore different directions I want. Uh, Tuesdays we have our internal team crit, so sharing our work for feedback, helping get like unbiased views because like obviously I'm tunnel visioned on my work. And then Wednesdays right now, like we have design reviews with our director level leaders. And so obviously a lot of prep before those reviews and then iterations afterwards. But then beforehand, like more as like a junior designer, I was probably not involved in those like larger leadership level design reviews. And so all I had to focus about on was like, I have a smaller project I'm going to share with my team. If the team's aligned, we can move forward and kind of hand off. And then during my internships, like they're even much smaller projects. So like maybe if as long as my manager was aligned, then like we could move forward. So some work I'd bring to design crits, but not as often. And so the communication like expected obviously like continues to grow. And then the actual focus time or design time you have like lessens as you kind of climb the ranks, which might seem daunting, but I think it's nice where you get to like be proud of your own work and like work on convincing others like why this is the best direction.
Yeah, I want to quickly share my day-to-day life because I guess a lot of people are curious about like working in a gaming industry, how's that different compared to other teams and fields. So I have working at Fortnite Metaverse for both the platform level and in-game level. When I was a designer at platform level, for example, like you jump into the lobby, the social, the settings, the discovery, all of that, that's like a platform level. So it's more like product-driven teams. So we basically have the same workflow as any other tech companies. But when I'm currently working at in-game teams, such as like Battle Royale, the most popular team in Epic Games, and my work is more like traditional, like gaming studios. So like Lynette, Ty mentioned, like their working is like 50% of communication, 50% of the design work. I would say like my job is more like 50% of IC work and another 50% is more like a product management or leadership role. Because as a UX designer for in-game designs, usually we also take in the role as like a product manager. So we need to do some detailed tasking for our UI teams. So we work closely with UI engineer, artist, tech UI, 3D animator, like a lot of roles. We have so many designers in the team. So we need to like actually do very detailed tracking of how everyone's doing and making sure there's no blocker for the features and plan for multiple play tests to get the feature shipped. So that's kind of like another styles of designer's role. So nowadays, I would say the trend is like UX designer, either way, they are expanding some roles more leaning to like technical side, or they're gonna expand into more like a product management side, like the example that I'm doing right now. So just give everyone a quick context.
Thank you. Oh, we'll start with you for the next question, I promise. Okay, so before we jump into the questions in the Q&A, my few of you have talked about communication, and so I would like each of you to share, like, in a few words, what you feel like are the essential skills you think someone needs to be successful in a UX or UI career. Good morning. We'll start with you, since I took your moment. So sorry.
No, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. I feel like an important skill to have within the UX industry as a designer, yeah, is to have like an openness to feedback because there's a good chance that the product you're designing, you're not going to be part of the user base, or the user base is going to expand then more than just you. So when you will be designing, you'll bring biases to the table. So when you're conducting like user research and usability testing, you can't get defensive over your design and you really need to like understand the user's perspectives and their needs. Otherwise, a product just wouldn't be a good product because it's not catering towards their needs. And so the users will just have a poor experience and an overall poor product.
Hannah, do you want to share anything for this one?
Yeah, I will give a really simple answer. Like one is definitely crafting. I know like in the past, just a couple of years, I feel like the market really care about your design thinking process, but nowadays it's kind of like back to it's like a circle. Nowadays we are more highlighting your crafting skills, and we are kind of like looking for designers who has better UI crafting skills and also some system level thinking abilities altogether. And that's what we call crafting. And then another side I want to mention is like it depends on the industry, but for me, like I feel if you are really good at adaptive to a new tools, especially like AI adaptive, that would be a good benefits for a lot of startups and some of the companies who are expanding their way for that field. And other than that, the last thing I would say is the team collaboration ability. For a lot of the things, we know how to do design as a designer for design thinking process, but in the real life, it's more about like collaboration process. You have legal, you have IP collaborated, and just so many things can be the blocker for your process. So it's always about collaboration process.
Awesome. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, I can just share from the research side since
Yeah.
there's a lot of overlap, but there's some nuances. But I kind of think of it as like there's three big buckets. Like the first one being like the hard skills. Like, do you know how to run research? Do you know your core methods like interviewing, writing effective surveys, usability testing? Do you know how to do those properly, do them rigorously, and do you know when to apply those? I think that's the first part. Second part is that collaboration, communication piece. Like, do you actually know how to communicate your findings, work with people to make things happen? And then the last one that I think others have hinted at as well is kind of that uh, systems thinking, business strategy. Like, can you actually tie your design or your research to the business? Can you deal with ambiguity? Can you like pull those threads together to actually do work that is meaningful? And I think that's one of the more complex pieces, but it's really important, especially in this day and age where you've got AI taking over basic tasks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all for running through those. We are officially going to transition into the Q&A, and we have a couple of questions that have been upvoted quite a few times. So our first question, I'm going to read it verbatim for y'all. So as an introvert, I often find networking and coffee chats a bit intimidating. They would love to hear about y'all's experiences, and have you ever asked for or received referrals through coffee networking chats? Do you think that these help with job searching? And what's the most effective way to approach these type of meetings?
I love this question because
Great.
for me personally, I never cared for networking. Obviously, it's very good for you. Like it's helpful. Don't get me wrong. Like I think it's better to do. But for me also as an introvert, back in college, like I never like reached out to people around companies. I just cold applied everywhere and then landed multiple internships. So for me, like I have found success not doing it. From like maybe like the 5 referrals that I had with like friends, I don't think I even got to the final round from those. So like, yeah, I wasn't successful there, but like was very successful through just like applying and like tailoring my own resume and portfolio.
I could speak about this because I too am introverted, and networking is really difficult because it just feels so artificial, right? Like you're just meeting someone random. But what I feel has been really beneficial for me was the thing about Seattle is that it's a tech city. So if you just go out and meet people, good chances are they work in tech. So instead of like you could go to networking events, but honestly, I've had more luck going to like social events and just meeting people through there. And I feel like that feels more authentic and natural because you have more of a connection that's more than just tech. Like me personally, I do a lot of like social dancing, and Seattle's like huge in social dancing, especially like Latin dancing. There's literally like a social every single day. But I think I've gone like social dancing at least 12 times in the summer, and everyone I met worked at Amazon. And I got coffee chats with so many of like PMs at Amazon, and then they would like refer me too. So there's definitely like opportunity there, and I would recommend going to social events as well and just getting yourself out there. But yeah.
Yeah, I want to quickly add on that. Just a quick suggestion for everyone who are trying to ask somebody give a referral to you, making sure you read the job description very carefully and making sure you are actually the right candidate for that role before you ask people give you a referral. Because I have been encountered a case like there's a person. I think she's a really good researcher, but she only worked for like 2 years. And then she asked me for a referral for our director role. So, which is like unqualified. But yeah, just like a quick example. So I would say if you are highly matched with that role, most of the time people are very glad to give you the referral. So don't waste any time or chance. Just do more research about if it's the right role. If you prepare your resume really qualify for that, I think you're gonna have a really high chance to hear back from people.
Thank you. Okay, our next question. What advice would you all give to someone wanting to transition into the UI UX career, but who has sorry, words, but who has an unrelated major and no experience in UI UX at all? What would your advice be?
I mean, I can, as somebody who has done that, I could share some things that worked for me. So, I mean, the first thing I'll say is that it's not easy, right? Especially now, there's a lot of interest in this field, and I would definitely like think about if you're going to do this, think about it as like you are investing in like a long-term discipline as opposed to switching into a job in a year. Like what I did when I was a technical recruiter looking to transition, it was probably a 2+ year journey for me. I started by reading every book that I could on UX, on design, on research, just to build that core knowledge. I was talking with the designers and the researchers in my company, and I started to find ways that I could apply UX principles to my job that I was doing at that point. So as a recruiter, what that looked like was I was using human-centered design to redesign our hiring process. I was using it to think about our career site and how can we improve the UX of our career site, and using those to start applying the skills even before I was doing the job. And that was really what helped me land my first job at that company that I was working at before, was because I had built relationships internally and I was demonstrating that even though, hey, I'm not a UX designer or researcher, I am thinking like one, I'm working as one, and I have this foundational knowledge. I think that's the kind of investment that you're probably looking at if you're coming from a totally unrelated discipline.
I think that's great. Thank you so much. Okay, so we talked, Hannah, you were talking a little bit about this with referrals, but how do you figure out which job level to apply for? So this participant this evening says, when they reach out for referrals, people often ask me to share specific roles, but they're struggling to identify the right level. So how do you know what you should be applying for?
Yeah, I would say it's a really tricky point, but definitely for new grad or someone who haven't graduated, internships, and usually not all the internships ask you have to like stay in school. Some of the internships nowadays they prefer someone they can convert to full time right after it. So it's not hard requirement saying like you must be a student at school for some internships. And for some new grad role, for sure, it's pretty clear. But for some entry level roles, I feel every new grad can give it a try. And for contract roles, I think there's more flexibility there. So just paying more attention to the job description about what skill sets they are asking. And for the years, if you feel like, oh, there's like 1 year more than my experience, I think you should give it a try because there's more flexibility about the years requirements compared to other like skill sets requirement.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna do like two more questions. So our next question is, when you're looking to hire candidates, and maybe some of you are in hiring positions or you've been on hiring teams, so talk about that. Specifically designers, do you recommend mentioning AI-based skill sets and being more vocal about it, or does this make you stand out? This person shares that they're against AI a bit, but muted about it. So how do you bring that up in a interview when maybe it's not something that aligns with what you're interested in or for?
I guess I
Yeah.
can speak a little bit about this because I think now like people are getting really scared if AI is going to take over our designer job. But what I've seen that is that I feel like AI is more like a tool for designers. Like for example, the traditional way of how we work with product managers or stakeholders in companies is like you have this PRD, product requirement document, and then you start building as a designer the prototype, and then Eng will develop it. But I think now with so many tools like Google AI Studio, you can vibe code everything. Like maybe like in a day, you will just make a live prototype using this tool. So I think it transformed the way that designers work instead of I guess being a little scared of how AI would take over. And to be more specific to the projects that you are preparing or working on for like internships, full-time jobs, I think AI could be I think AI should be used in the right way, like not for the sake just adding some AI features in it, but actually think about, well, this feature help people. Well, adding that AI like chatbot or assistant there will actually make it more convenient for people or reach the goal or match the success metrics that you defined for your project. I think if that all hits, then I think it's good to do that. And I guess companies who are, looking in the AI direction will find it really helpful from that portfolio. But otherwise, I think be a little critical to see if the AI features is actually important there.
Thank you. Okay, jumping back a little bit to your on-campus experience, what extracurriculars or programs did you all do that helped you get into UX early on, or maybe sparked your first interest in exploring UX?
I suppose I can start.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was involved in a handful of like tech clubs and I did a tech major, but I feel like what really benefited me was joining the research lab that I joined. At the time was known as Simone Labs, but now we moved to FSU. I'm still with them as a lead. But it was really beneficial because we were working on real world products and it gave me more of like an outside class experience of like designing a product and like going through the whole design process, like usability testing, heading off to developers, etc., etc. And I found that to be really beneficial. And that actually also helped me land my current role due to how my research lead was like a colleague of the person who was hiring. So that was really beneficial.
Anyone else? Are we? Okay. Perfect. Our last question here, and actually let me refresh my notes. Okay, there we go. So when you're asked to design for a highly technical or unfamiliar domain, what's your approach to building empathy and understanding the user needs when you don't fully grasp the tools yourself?
I
Hi,
can
looks
share.
ready.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could. I don't know. I feel like every UX job I've had was diving into an unfamiliar domain. I know the first thing that I do is I schedule internal interviews with everybody, like the PMs, the designers. If you're working with customer support, the salespeople, whatever the relevant people internally are, there are people who have been working on that space for years, probably. And I treat it like research. I go in and I'm asking questions to understand who are our users, what are we building, why are we building it, and usually pairing that with whatever internal documentation, past research, or I mean, gosh, I've read industry like journals before to ramp up on a space. Like the knowledge is out there, whether it's internally or externally, and just kind of going in with that beginner's mindset and absorbing everything is you're going to have to do that for every job that you go into. So I know that's kind of how I approach it.
I think that's awesome. And I think that that's actually a perfect place to wrap up our webinar this evening. So, ending on the note of being a little curious and heading out into explore these careers. So, I really want to give a huge thank you and round of applause to our five lovely panelists. Thank you so much for giving your time tonight to the UW, and thank you for sharing your experience of being an alumni who's out in the community. Also, big shout out to the Career Internship Center and Lindsay and her team for helping us to partner in this evening. Just wanted to share out that there will be a follow-up email sent to everybody who attended. And we will share, all of our panelists are lovely enough to share all of their LinkedIn's. The one big request and tip and trick is that when you send a request to connect, please do include a note on why and or how you found them this panel this evening, and what you're hoping to connect about. And then the recording for this webinar will be on the Career and Internships website as well. And then also just make sure you continue to check out the Career and Internship website for more opportunities, more chances to connect and get those portfolios and resumes built up so that you're ready for their next season of job or internship. So thank you all for being here this evening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good night. Bye. Thank you all.
Thanks, y'all. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.